Totally different. Now I'd like to talk about bridging and enabling courses. This is part of a project led by Linda Galligan, and you can see there's quite a few of us involved, including Ken, who is here in the audience. And it's part of a project to look at pathways, mathematics pathways and support across Australian universities. There's 40 universities we're looking at. And there's quite a lot in pathways and support. So I'm talking about a small part of it, which came about because me and a couple of others said, wait, how do I know if this is an enabling course? How do I know if it's a bridging course? How do I know if it's something else? What's the difference? And so a few of us got talking and looking, and because we needed to actually have some terminology or some consistency or some definitions or just know what we were on about. So even enabling and bridging courses, I didn't really know. Well, I sort of did, but I couldn't write it down properly. That tells me I didn't really know what it was. Okay, so enabling and bridging courses. Well, firstly, I'd like to give the context. This is a talk about the Australian system. I don't know anything about systems in other countries. So our context is Australian students, or for the Australians, it's actually domestic students, improving mathematical skills needed for undergraduate study via enabling and bridging courses, which I'm going to sort of define later. Now, part of the context of us is we want to, at my university, and I think across Australia, we have a push for retention. That is, once we've got a student enrolled, we want to keep them till we kick them out the other end with a degree. We don't want them to drop out. Now, the government, through the Australian Universities Accord, which I think came out in February last year, includes recommendations that by 2050, at least 80% of the working age population will have completed tertiary education. That does not mean university. It can be other things. They can leave with being a motor mechanic or a hairdresser or whatever, but 80%. And they put money behind this from the university side by significantly increasing funding in 2025 to $18,278 per full-time student, which provides 8,600 enabling places, fully funded for students to prepare for university study. It's part of a $350 million four-year commitment to enabling courses called the Fee-Free Uni Ready. So some of you Australians might have heard of Fee-Free Uni Ready. If you haven't, you've missed $350 million. So that's the Australian, that's sort of a big push. Now, the Australian government has always, well, for a long time, I don't know when this started, but for many, many years, has provided money to universities for enabling courses. What's new is that they've massively increased the funding. And the reason, and this is, I think, taken from a press release, to expand access to university and to improve students' chances of success once enrolled. So what are these? What's an enabling course? Whatever. Well, firstly, we, from our big project on support and enabling, just for this paper, looked at courses designed to bridge the gap to university. That is, programs that prepare students for university studies, but do not give credit to an award. It's not going to give you any credit towards your diploma or your bachelor's degree or anything, and are at least 2 days in length. That's a rather arbitrary cutoff, but we wanted to sort of somehow distinguish between just short workshops. And maybe we've got it right, maybe we haven't. Okay. Now, the problem is the terminology used on various university websites did my brain in. The terms bridging, enabling, refresher, foundation, pathway, preparatory, and a few others are used more or less randomly as far as I can tell. You can't tell whether something's a bridging course because it says bridging. It could be something totally different. Okay, so here's the way that I'm going to use the terminology here and in our proceedings paper. Enabling course is a course recognised by the Australian government as an enabling course. I'll tell you what that is in a moment. Now, luckily, this does apply with this in general with the sort of published literature on enabling courses in Australia, so it's not a radical departure from what people believe. And a mathematics bridging course, or just bridging course, is any course meeting our criteria above, not contributing to an award, etc., and not classified as an enabling course. So an bridging course is a complement of the set of enabling courses in the space that we're looking at today. Here's what the government said is an enabling course. This is from the Higher Education Schedule Act 2003. Enabling course means a course of instruction provided to a person for the purpose of enabling the person to undertake a course leading to a higher education award, but does not include a course leading to a higher education award. So it is genuinely preparing students for entry into something that will then give them a certificate at the end. It does not include any course that the minister determines is not an enabling course for the purposes of this Act. Now, as a mathematician, I was devastated because I want a proper definition, but I'm not going to get it. Okay. Now, there is quite a bit on enabling courses around in Australia. The NAEA, the National Association of Enabling Educators, has put out some reports and some interesting stuff. There is some literature out there, and people have written papers, for example, Irwin Baker and Carter, who looked at what I consider to be the most relevant part for us on for what we're looking at, which is the maths content of enabling courses. And these people found that 72% of the courses, they sort of did some survey across Australia, examined included numeracy or mathematics as either a core or elective component, with numeracy embedded in other aspects. So that's 72% had some sort of mathematical content in an enabling course. Okay. Well, what's a bridging course? Well, there is literature quite a lot about bridging courses, and the sort of perhaps one of the most important papers, McGillivray and survey from 2009, says that bridging courses are generally understood as preparatory programs designed to equip students with the prerequisite or assumed knowledge before commencing their degree programs. So that also, what we're doing also fits with McGillivray's definition, and I think that's how most people use the term. Okay, bridging courses run from a few days to semester-long courses. There was a bridging mathematics network. I didn't know it existed, but it doesn't matter because it died many years ago. But I put it here. Linda Galligan seemed disappointed that it had died. Maybe someone will want to resurrect it, because she did note the lack of literature and study of bridging courses. Something for the future. Okay, what we wanted to know was, are there key characteristics which differentiating bridging and enabling courses? We wanted to know that for the sort of audit we're doing across Australia of various support pathways and so on. If we're going to label something as bridging, is it really different to we need to be able to tell the difference. What do universities offer in terms of these courses, and is there any relationship between the institutional grouping? I'll say more about the groupings later. We looked at 40 Australian universities. These will be all the universities you can think of in Australia, plus a few others. 38 of these 40 are funded at the highest level, and 2 have a lower level of government funding, and they're Bond and Torrens. Now, I have to apologise for the people who are not Australians here. I'm going to mention in passing, or with just acronyms, various Australian universities. Just ignore that. You don't need to know which universities they are. They're here for the Australians, so they can come up to me at the end and say, well, actually, the information on your university is incorrect. And I would love to hear from you if you think so. So let's continue. So what we found is that in 2025, only one university was found to offer neither enabling nor bridging courses. And I don't think there's anyone from the ANU here, so I'm safe. But this illustrates something that we found a lot. It's an anomaly that there wasn't a bridging course in 2025 was an anomaly because the unit that ran it had just been all sacked in the few months before then. And that is going on through higher education in Australia. It's like everybody's throwing it up and catching some pieces and letting others smash. There's a lot of change, a lot of people leaving, a lot of units, a lot of disruption. So they didn't have a bridging course purely because of the disruption at the start of this year. They'll have one next year, I'm assured. So what we found, and now because of this disruption, also because of the shocking websites of some universities and the fact that it's really hard to know even what happens at your own university, these numbers are probably more or less correct. What I'm giving you is a high-level overview. I cannot give you an accurate, detailed picture. I couldn't even do it at my own university. It took me about a month to find out exactly what enabling courses my university runs, and I started with the PVC education. That's how difficult it can be. And for those at Western Sydney, did you know we had one in policing? No, you didn't, did you? Okay. Of the 40 universities, 33 were found to offer enabling courses, which is the bulk of them. There will probably be more. Now that the funding has increased, I think there's more interest from universities. Bridging courses, we found 22. Now, bridging courses are a little more difficult. Enabling courses with government funding, I think they're more likely to be advertised on websites. Bridging courses could be advertised completely internally, and that is not visible to outsiders. I don't really know. Okay. The important thing, do enabling courses contain mathematics subjects? Well, in that paper from 2018, they found 72% did. Here's what we found. In the enabling courses, 18 included mathematics, 9 maths as an elective, 1 with no maths, 5 I couldn't tell from the website, and 7 had no enabling course. Now, I should say a lot of this data was collected by websites, but we have across the team talked to at least one person from each of the 40 universities. We have been in contact with the universities. And here's another problem with this. I think it's really difficult to find one person at the university who knows about all the pathways and the enabling and the bridging and the support, because these are often run by many different units across the university. And that's another thing that makes this data really hard to collect. The other thing is we're grateful when we find someone who will respond to us. Not everybody does. It is really hard to get the information. So this is roughly correct. Now, in Australian universities, well, many countries have the sort of higher tier of universities. There's the Russell Group ones in the UK. What is it? The R1 in the US, which I learned about in the last month. These are the ones that are research intensive. They tend to be richer, higher up in the various international rankings. In Australia, it's the group of 8 because there's 8 of them. We also in Australia have 6 universities which get together and call themselves the Australian Technology Network. They're sort of they think they're big in technology. And there's another 7 that think they're innovative. I don't know. And there's the regional ones. Regional is sort of self-explanatory. They tend to be out in the regions. And most of Australia is actually regional, even though most of the population is in the cities. And then there's 10 who aren't in any of these little groupings. And then there's Table B universities. They're the 2 lower funded, lesser funded universities. Okay, now we wondered whether these groupings, whether there were any patterns, anything that showed up amongst these groupings, because, you know, are they genuinely different? And so do they do genuinely different things with enabling and bridging? Well, the Table B universities don't offer enabling courses because they're not eligible for the government money. That's a simple one. Most of the others do. I think there's so few universities that none of this is significant. But the group of 8, 3 of them don't offer enabling courses, and there was another one which didn't until recently, perhaps because they've much higher ranking. They tend to have higher entry standards. Perhaps they feel they don't need to provide so many courses or whatever for bringing in other students. I don't know. I think this picture is really quite interesting. Now, this is good data. This is from the government website. It's 2023 data on enabling students. This is what was funded by the government. They make this data public. So this is funding in 2023 of enabling courses. Now, the group of 8 is that tiny little slice up the top. Very few students do enabling courses at the group of 8. And I think that shows maybe they don't think it's not big for them. The University of Newcastle down the bottom is one of the technology universities, takes the largest number of students. Historically, they were the first into enabling and have always been big in enabling. And I guess, well, they've continued that. The regional universities, note that they have a huge slice of the enabling programs. And perhaps that's not a surprise, because regional students in Australia are disadvantaged. When you're out in the regions, you are, and for those of you in little countries like in the UK, they are a long way from any city. So it is a genuine equity problem issue, being from the regions. They just don't have the resources available in general that students from the cities have. So the regional universities they take a lot more students in for enabling courses. I'm not sure that there's anything else that's really of note in that diagram. Here's another. This is done by state, broken down by state. I find it really quite strange. New South Wales is the largest state with a population of, I think it's 8.5 million. Victoria isn't far behind. I think it's got about 7 million people. But look, New South Wales takes this many students and Victoria this many. I don't completely understand it. We've had a little chat in our group about it. It seems that in Victoria there has been some sort of arrangement with the technical and further education for that might sort of somehow replace enabling. If any Australians happen to know that, then maybe that's sort of been the way they've gone, rather, whereas New South Wales hasn't had that option, so has gone the enabling route. I don't know. You'd think that Victoria was very small, whereas the Northern Territory isn't it, while it's large in area, it's very small population-wise, yet it has a substantially larger proportion of enabling students. But there's a lot of disadvantage. A lot of students will need extra work to get into university there, so it's not surprised it's got a reasonable slice compared to population. Okay. Now, what do enabling courses look like? Well, we looked at, tried to look at enabling courses, or at least perhaps the most prominent one for each university. So what do they do? We looked at the variety. Are there any characteristics of them? And I think really the summary is it's a dog's breakfast. You can get everything. The level of enabling courses goes from, well, some of them take in students and assume they have no mathematics or haven't studied mathematics since sort of maybe about mid-high school. But some begin at what is intermediate level mathematics. In Australia, the exams or the levels of mathematics one can study in the last 2 years of secondary school are designated, I think it's elementary or general, intermediate and higher. So those are the terms that AMSI, the Australian Mathematical Sciences, uses to describe them. So intermediate mathematics is calculus level. So some enabling courses start at that level. They assume you've got that and build on it. Most of them contain mathematics, some a little bit of statistics. In most of this talk, I'm assuming mathematics includes statistics, but really a lot of this is just about mathematics. An outlier was the University of Melbourne, whose enabling course was half mathematics. Most of them had a much smaller component of mathematics, if any mathematics in them at all. And the University of Melbourne one is a reasonably new one. The University of Queensland requires evidence of some mathematical ability for entry. This is the University of Queensland here. And within the course, you can do more mathematics. It's there as an elective. At the other end is La Trobe University, where the course learning outcomes have nothing that smells of mathematics at all. So the level, huge variety. Eligibility for enabling courses. Well, most state a minimum age, and I think the idea is not to have high school students. High school students should be at school. I think that's why, I'm not sure. But most of them state a minimum age, and the minimum age is not the same. As you can see, it might be 17, it might be 18, it might be 21. For recent school leavers, some enabling courses require a minimum grade in English. And here I've got acronyms just to give examples of universities that do this. You can ignore those completely. Again, an outlier is the University of Melbourne, which requires an Australian tertiary admissions rank of greater than 70 out of 100 to get into its enabling course. Now, students are ranked from 0 to 100 at the end of secondary school, and they require that your rank be 70 or above. I mean, you can get into most courses at my university without maths and with a lower ATAR, so that's they have higher standards. Okay. However, they do have priority for equity groups, and it is aimed at equity students, I'm told. Okay, some require older applicants to take a test, I guess, to see if they've forgotten everything. I don't know. Length. Well, with the enabling courses, the lengths don't vary too much. Full-time 1 semester is most common. There are some 2-semester courses, and many of them are available part-time, and a few have accelerated modes. Now, some take you straight into a degree, some are targeted particular degrees, some are seem to be just generally a good thing. So some universities guarantee specified entry. For example, Charles Sturt University enabling course gives you guaranteed entry into an undergraduate certificate. So that's an award course. You get a certificate at the end which says certificate, and that guarantees entry and credit for a degree. So it's not the enabling course that gives you credit. The enabling course gets you the certificate, and the certificate gives you the credit. Now, it's quite often that for particular bachelor degrees, further requirements are there for entry, and that makes sense depending on the specialisation, you know, the discipline of the degree and the needs. Mode, of course, it was all over the place. There were a lot online, a lot on campus. Central Queensland Uni was a little unusual in that it offered enabling courses on 7 campuses. I was impressed by that. Some offer only face-to-face courses. Okay, so you can see with the enabling picture, you can pretty much get everything. And it's the same with bridging. Okay, here's the offerings by university grouping. I don't think there's much to say there. It doesn't seem to align with grouping, whether a bridging course is offered or not. Unlike the enabling, we don't have numbers enrolled in bridging courses. There's no government funding or anything for these. There is, I'm sure there is no central collection point of data on numbers of students, etc. So the data here is generally poorer. Degree, well, some bridging courses prepare students for specific degrees. My own university offers 5 courses, and up until a couple of weeks ago, we had this lovely system online where students could put in their maths background and the degree they were going into, and it would recommend which of the 5 courses, the various topics. So it would recommend exactly what the students should do, but the university broke that along with various other bits of the website. The level. Some bridging courses have assumed knowledge. Some bridging courses are designed to take you from the intermediate level of mathematics up to higher level mathematics. Some start with students at the lowest level or no mathematics and take you up to intermediate mathematics. There's, again, pretty much everything. Length, a few days to 3 months. A few days, well, if you do just one of the short Western Sydney ones, it'll take you a couple of days to 3 months. Queensland University of Technology. Charles Darwin offers a selection of short modules, so you can do a very short little bit of bridging if you only need a couple of modules. The cost varies from free to $1,500. I think that's an enormous range. But then the length is an enormous range as well. So eligibility, some bridging courses are for currently enrolled students. For example, my own university, because it uses the learning management system and students have to be enrolled to use that. Others are for everyone. Some possibly are a money-making exercise like the ones that charge $1,500, I suppose. University of Sydney offers a free MOOC. Some run on campus, some run online, some on both. Now with assessment, some are assessed and some are not assessed. So University of Melbourne and University of New South Wales have uninvigilated assessment. University of Sydney MOOC has optional assessment. I'm just waiting for David to sort of frown or something, but maybe I've got it wrong. Who knows? But that's the information I got. Okay. And University of Queensland and Queensland University of Technology run examinations. So there's pretty much everything there. And that's about it. That's all I want to say. I think the summary with enabling courses and bridging courses, it's a dog's breakfast. You've got everything is correct. Now, especially the bridging courses, there is no regulation, nothing. Universities do what they do. One assumes and hopes that they do what is best for their students and for their degrees. And let's leave it at that. Any questions? We have time for a few questions because, oh no, we have about 30 seconds for questions, I think, because someone's running the workshop about now.
Question to Leanne. You probably can't answer this, but could it just be that bringing the courses are mislabeled and people don't know that it's the funding? Sorry. Could it just be that the bridging courses are mislabeled or misidentified and that the authorities running them don't know that there's access to cash or to...
It could be. It wouldn't surprise me in the least that some bridging courses could be rebadged as enabling and apply for government funding. And now that the government funding has increased greatly, it may be that some universities will do this. In fact, a couple have come up over the last year or two, and I think because of the increased funding. So, yes, but then the minister's got to give it the tick as well. Any other questions?